Well, welcome everyone. Today is March 20th, 2025. My name is MJ, Jared, I use she, her pronouns, and I am the team lead for the Vermont Multi-Tiered Systems of Support team. It's situated within the Student Support Services Division at the Vermont Agency of Education. And I'm here with my co-facilitator and colleague, Nancy Helen, and I'll let her introduce herself as well, and then we'll move forward.
Thanks. Hi, all. Nancy Helen, she, her pronouns, on the VTmtss team and also family engagement coordinator across the agency. Glad to be here.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. And thank you to each of you who are tuning in today. Our topic today is building capacity in systems improvement efforts through effective collaboration. This presentation is part of an academic year-long series of our VTmtss office hours. And our office hours are essentially to help promote learning and application of the Vermont MTSS field guide and framework, as well as explore and update the field with topics that are within our purview of our team. So that includes, we've done presentations this year related to our VTmtss survey data and application of data analysis. We've talked about hazing, harassment, and bullying, Rule 4500, restraint, seclusion, exclusionary discipline, and Section 504. So today we're going to be focusing on our second component that's listed within our VTmtss framework, which is effective collaboration, and thinking about how, when this is done effectively, can help to improve systems and help build capacity, which inevitably will promote safer and healthier school communities, and academic and learning outcomes for our Vermont students. So as this is part of our VTmtss office hour series, we like to start every presentation centering with our belief statement. So I'll read this aloud. The VTmtss team is committed to the belief that each and every student can learn and achieve high standards. We believe that establishing interconnected, interrelated systemic approaches creates equitable conditions to sustain a dynamic, responsive educational system. We believe our role is to help school and district staff build capacity in collaboration with each other, students, families, and community, and all of this in an effort to strive towards equity of educational opportunity. And so we wanted to center with this belief statement because a lot of these elements are going to show up in our presentation today, including the building capacity, the effective collaboration, and how does that show up with each other, educator to educator, administrators, and then also thinking about student and family community engagement. So how are we going to do this and what topics are we going to accomplish today? Our focus is to consider how that component 2 of our VTmtss field guide, effective collaboration, is rooted in research, that it is fostered in trust and how important trust and relationships are in collaboration, how it helps to elevate expertise, which is another core component of our VTmtss framework and field guide, and that it requires continuous and ongoing commitment and intentionality. So through this, we will be exploring strengths and opportunities for effective collaboration in hopefully your educational systems and within your broader community as well. And we're planning on talking about the component and as well as some strategies or some application that you may be able to bring back to your school communities and systems for further consideration to improve effective collaboration. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Nancy.
Okay, so To start off this dive into the framework and specifically the collaboration, we'd like to pose this question. So what is a practice within your educational system that fosters trust and promotes a collaborative culture? If you have experience in effective practice, and what what comes up for you? I'll give you a little think time. Feel free to raise your hand or put in chat if you have access to chat. Um, just a practice that happens within your school system. Anybody willing to break the silence?
For me, I think like what came up for me was like we have had a couple of really great IDT meetings recently, and I feel like that's a space where there's trust and like collaboration around how to support kids, but also it can be a place of mistrust too. So I think it's dependent on the meeting and who shows up.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Anybody else a thought on this? Something that comes up that you practice in meetings or when you bring folks together um, to collaborate? Well, possibly things will come up as we talk through this. So I will continue. Thank you.
You're muted, Nancy.
Thank you. That would help. Moving on, a quick review of the VTmtss framework before a focus on effective collaboration. And so the framework is a conceptual model for understanding how school systems work. It is intended to provide common language that describes components and have specific functions, but they're also really importantly connected. Any work in a school system should include consideration of the contributions of all of the components as well as their interactions. So here we have the swirl, and in the center of the model is a systemic and comprehensive approach. This hub is of the model holds together strengthening and coordinating the servicing of each component. So we have high quality instruction, assessment, expert collaboration are all familiar ideas within school systems, and these components encourage deeper exploration and understanding as they interact. So they're dynamic and with a culture of continuous improvement, ongoing decision making, and as the belief statement of our the VTmtss framework belief statement says is making for excellence and equity. Um, its purpose is to help us act with intention and keeping a balance. So we're not focusing on one thing more, while forgetting about the other pieces. So just that whole concept of interaction and building on each other as components. Today's focus, the core component of effective collaboration, has two essential conditions: cultivating a collaborative culture and establishing and monitoring effective collaboration. The foundation for effective problem-solving, instructional decision-making is a dynamic and positive and productive collaboration among students, families, and professionals. So we're going to be covering the idea of, yes, this happens within the school system. It includes each and every student, all the families, and all the professionals that are part of that school system. So on to some research. Research continuously is showing us that the systems with effective collaboration benefit all within the school system, students and staff and families. Data shows that improvement in academics and skills and collaboration around professional learning and curriculum among staff lead to improvement in student academic achievement. That probably doesn't surprise anybody here, but it continually shows up in research. Research also points out, next slide, yep. Research also points out to effective collaboration among staff improves professional satisfaction. And as you might imagine, professional satisfaction includes teacher retention, which is helpful in the long term of establishing relationships and trust and ongoing system change. Systemic collaboration on behavioral and social emotional learning lead to a reduction in inappropriate behavior and an increase in positive interactions between teachers and students, and improved student learning and improved interactions among families also. So much of this material is in the Vermont Multi-Tiered System of Supports field guide, and you'll be providing information about different page numbers, but this is up from page 20, Practical Matters. And thinking about application of collaboration within your educational system of these areas to strengthen strong collaborative culture and monitoring. So what does this look like? It depends on a committed leadership, and that people believe that abilities can be developed and meaningful tasks accomplished with excellence through collective and focused work. So they believe in collaboration. They believe in working together to improve and better school systems. There is a shared leadership responsibility. Within collaborative culture, expertise can be targeted to support students more effectively. So if you're collaborating and have an understanding of expertise, and you have systems to provide that expertise where needed, then that will be more effective. Every student and family is an authentic partner within the system and has opportunities to shape school experiences. And this has to do, with family engagement. If folks are feeling like they are listened to and heard, then it's going to multiply as far as how families feel involved and engaged in the schools. Students are collaborative in discussions and creation and decision making about their learning, and learners work together to discuss ideas, build community, and solve problems. So if you have a collaborative culture, students are part of that collaborative culture. They see it happening with the school and it's making a difference. To examine current collaborative arrangements and practices for potency and efficiency, and think about how these structures and practices can best support the framework, that you are monitoring and thinking about that. You have a system to do that, and you have leadership that takes that on. So collaboration is crucial with educational systems for guiding and sustaining educational excellence and equity. Back to you, MJ.
Great, thanks, Nancy. So we showed some of the components of our VTmtss framework, how it's rooted in research, how effective collaboration can be really useful, and what does collaboration, what might it look like? And so we're going to funnel down a little bit more into strategies and indicators of how we are moving towards a system and building capacity that fosters and encourages and sustains effective collaboration. And we really can't talk about collaboration in its entirety without thinking about relational trust. That really is the fundamental piece to relationships and doing any collaborative work with each other. And so we wanted to offer this quote about trust. So trust cannot be easily separated from expanded teacher empowerment and influence. Teachers are not passive actors in the school, but co-constructors of trust. So as active professionals, teachers who feel left out of important decisions will react by withdrawing trust, which then undermines change or perhaps sustainability within an effective school system or systems. And so thinking about the converse of this, what does it look like when there is where there's a system that engenders trust, and that teachers and educators, we've also talked about other partners like students and families and other external community members, as they're engaged in the school system, how might you be able to build that relational trust? And it doesn't necessarily need to be a big initiative. It's the day-to-day interactions and just engaging with one another. And again, this connects to the research that Nancy had mentioned, and that's in our field guide on page 18, that there are decades of research that emphasize strong partnerships between families and schools and communities help to improve academic and learning outcomes. So trust is not just for the sake of building relationship, but there's also that in itself is really powerful and important, and also can help produce the outcomes that we're seeking for in our school communities. So building trust is hard. We certainly understand that, and we wanted to offer a few thoughts about how to build trust within an effective and collaborative school system and learning community. So the first is to organize around a compelling school vision that helps to build to sustain trust. This can include a vision as well as a mission that really anchors or is the North Star of your system, and that everyone can find common ground around. So that can help to engender trust on the onset, and that it's documented, it's visible, it's living and breathing within your school system. Educational organizations and their professionals celebrate success, and also equally inclined to learn from failure and adapt to change. And that over time helps to build resilience within the system. So celebrating successes are really important, as well as creating that psychological safety and vulnerability within a school system to allow failure, which is inevitable, to be a learning moment. So really shifting from a growth mindset and thinking about adaptation and continuous improvement in the situation where an initiative or a situation may not have achieved the outcome that it was originally intended for. Leadership is also, the next 3 points are really important too. Building trust is top down and bottom up, and it's like a breath. It's really dynamic and needs to be very agile. So when there's leadership that really encourages trust, that shows up by leaders supporting collaboration and providing and preserving scheduled time and resources for educators, professionals, families, and students and other partners to work together and have meaningful time together. Leaders also lead by modeling and living out the values or the vision and mission of the collective vision and mission of the school and the system, and embodies the behavior that supports continuous improvement. So again, that growth mindset of learning from failure or improving and adapting continually. And then leaders also can model that doing, they're visible, they're present, and they are doing what they're expecting others to do as well. So not just managing, but leading and being visible and engaging with each other to help foster that trust within the school systems. So how do you know when you have trust embodied within an educational system? This is, again, is rooted in research and outlined within our VTmtss field guide, but these are what we call enhancers of trust or indicators of trust. And you know when trust, you feel it, you see it, you can measure it when there are environments in which both administrators and teachers demonstrate competence in fulfilling their roles, that professionals are trusting in the abilities of others. So there's that shared commitment and engagement with one another, that professionals feel that they have influence over decisions are made. Thinking about that earlier quote that I had shared, that they feel empowered and that they feel like they have a level of influence that is in accordance with their role and responsibility within the system. And they're encouraged to continue to feel empowered and to engage and share their voice. Another indicator of trust within the educational system is that educators are feeling like they are engaged partners and that they believe that their interests are considered during decision making, that they have a vital role in the decision making processes, and have true effect and can help foster change within an environmental system, and that those changes are measured and can be measured. So these are indicators of trust when you know that it's embodied and engendered within an educational system. We also wanted to offer on page 92 in our field guide, we have some reflective questions that help kind of show a cross-section of all of our different components. And so today we're focusing on collaborative culture, but as Nancy had mentioned, they're interrelated and intersect. They're components that really connect with one another and are not in isolation. And so we wanted to offer these that perhaps you'll bring back to your school communities as you're thinking about how you continue to cultivate a collaborative culture. So some of the questions here are, what are the expectations that your educators and staff in working collaboratively to address academic, behavioral, and social emotional issues? So are those clearly defined and communicated for everyone within the school community? How does leadership support and allocate resources for collaborative work? As we had alluded, resources is human capital, it's also time, it's funding, all of those pieces. So really thinking about how resources are intentionally allocated to help support and lift up collaboration within an environmental or an educational system. Another question is, are staff roles and responsibilities fluid, that they allow for alignment and expertise, which is another core component, with specific student as well as staff needs as well. We think a lot about student outcomes, both in terms of learning and academic outcomes, but we're also thinking about collaboration and the needs of our educators, for retention, for creating a positive and sustainable educational system. Everyone involved in that ecosystem should feel that they are aligned, that their expertise and their experience is lifted up, and that they feel empowered and have a level of influence within their position. Our collaborations, like true collaborations, designed to take advantage of the collective expertise of members. If not, where are their opportunities? And that could be a really rich conversation with leadership, or even amongst educators, and thinking about how to more sustainably and fully lift up and utilize the collaborations and the opportunities that are within your educational systems. Do you have a system for monitoring the effectiveness of collaborations? Collaboration can be measured. What does that look like for your school system? And how will you know? And then how do you balance purposes, such as instruction and problem solving and professional learning across your collaboration? And thinking about that agility and that dynamic, how does that continue to evolve over time? Especially as you have new members in your communities coming in and out, and so there's a fluctuation of different areas of experience and expertise. How are you lifting that out, lifting that up, while also balancing all of the different purposes and responsibilities within your collaborative environments? So this is just a sampling of some questions in the rubric, again, in the field guide, and we'll send that along to you. We had talked about two conditions of how effective collaboration shows up. That was the first, and the second is the establishing and monitoring. So we did also want to offer a few additional reflective questions, particularly about establishing and monitoring what collaboration and its effectiveness looks like within your school systems and your educational context. So we have three questions here. One, how do you ensure that our collaborative arrangements include a range of perspectives? Educators, students, families, and community members. And what is appropriate to the focus? So oftentimes we're thinking about who should be at the table, and then maybe have a second question of reflecting who's not at the table that should be. And if not at this table, how might their voices be represented in an appropriate way as it pertains to the focus and the need of the conversation? How do you collaborate to consolidate information and align innovation to determine productive areas for action? And then how are participants trained, thinking about that level of experience and expertise, or versed in the various roles and norms and expectations that are required for an effective collaboration? I'll pause there, making the assumption there's a lot of experience and expertise in this virtual room, and wondering what might be coming up for folks as we lift up just a sampling of some of these questions, these reflective questions about how effective collaboration can help build systemic capacity. You're welcome to use the chat or the hand raising feature. I do have limited visibility of the chat by sharing my screen. And if you don't have anything to share right now, perhaps this is some time just to think on your own about how maybe a question that might be resonating with you, or how you might bring that back to your school teams.
Chromebox spoken feedback is ready. Entered full screen. Meet. Entered full screen.
We'll move forward. We wanted to lift up again, as time is a really precious resource in our educational systems and environments, and how critical it is to schedule time for collaboration. In fact, our annual VTmtss survey, we ask this question of who's collaborating and what does that look like in terms of how you're building your schedule out, because it's really imperative for folks to be able to connect and co-plan in order to provide high quality instruction and intervention, and to help build that underlying trust and relationship that's really paramount to effective collaboration. This is also from our data gathering with the VTmtss survey, among other different data points. This continues to be one of the pinch points or critical issues that we're hearing from educational systems. And it's important to ensure that the time scheduled for collaboration is used wisely and can be measured, that it results in providing important insights and actions that can help infuse and inform the evolution of your educational systems. And just preserving the time is not enough. What you do with that time is also really important. And so that may mean establishing expectations for agendas to be very purposeful, help to maximize the amount of time, the collaborative time that you do have, because it's such a limited resource in our systems, and that the meetings are monitored for effectiveness. And there is a periodic review of how what is being effective and where might be some areas to improve efficiency and effectiveness, to really make sure that it's meaningful collaboration when you do schedule time to be with one another. Great. Back to you, Nancy.
Thank you. So now I'm going to focus on family engagement. And first I'm going to highlight the nationally recognized dual capacity building framework for family school partnership that was published by Karen Mapp. It's in its second edition at this point. And this framework identifies 6 processes, conditions, or actions that are key to design effective initiatives for building capacity for families and school staff to form partnerships in ways that support school and student achievement and school improvement. This dual capacity building framework aligns with the Vermont Family Engagement Framework core principles. So they align specifically. So first, collaborative culture for family engagement indicators include that families and community members are welcomed into the school environment where their home cultures and languages are respected. And that every student and family is an authentic partner within the school system and has opportunities to shape the experiences and get meaningful information about student progress and hold legitimate roles within the school system. So family engagement as a strategy within a school system has goals and programs. So thinking about your continuous improvement plan, is school family engagement embedded within the continuous improvement plan? And that critical leadership is to be asking some questions that are pretty critical, like what is our family engagement school culture? And what are staff roles in this work? And what does collaboration across roles look like for family engagement? What are the lines of communication? For example, is there intentional collaboration between family engagement coordinators and the CFP team, which is where some money can be funding opportunities for family engagement? And another question might be, is there intentional collaboration between the family engagement liaisons and school counselors? Is there intentional time set aside for these folks to work together in collaboration to support families and to grow the family engagement and strengthen family engagement across the school systems? So in asking questions also like, how do we encourage collaboration of all community partners, including families and communities, for the success of all students? So bridging out from families into the community. How are all the organizations and agencies supporting the learning and the families within your school systems? Is professional development provided around how to collaborate and strengthen family engagement? And are there opportunities to discuss family engagement across collaborations within the school system? These are ways to think about, so what is the culture and how to strengthen that collaboration, which strengthens strategies to support student learning and to support families feeling like they're in true partnership with schools. So I am going to, in chat, just lift up the dual capacity framework, and I will now lead into ongoing collaborative arrangements that can be found in the VTmtss field guide. And this shows you on page 102 and 104 that there is a appendix that just lists down through all the different kinds of collaborative arrangements that you might find within a school system, and that you all have in your own systems your own names for these arrangements and different teams, and that each one's scope and membership will be different from school to school. But there are arrangements that exist to support VTmtss work, and that you're looking at all the different core principles, or I just use the family engagement language, the components of the framework, yes. So these are not intended to be prescriptive or limited in scope, that they will vary, and that your school system will have perhaps even hybrid teams because you're a smaller school system. So determining team membership requires careful understanding of the team's purpose and thinking about a fluid approach so that it might change membership as needs arise, or as you see lapses in who's around the table. And these are to assure that you're in a position to be decision makers and have the appropriate expertise, and bring together the equity that supports each and every child. So some of the teams that are included are grade level teams, content area teams, vertical teams, positive behavior and social emotional support teams, EST teams, data teams, district data teams, and the list goes on. And you're probably very aware of how folks can be in multiple teams and how that communication and how those are connected is a critical part of the collaboration component. So this is Appendix A is just an opportunity to kind of go through, think about what the membership is, what the goals are, and what activities might be in those teams, and make it your own kind of list to perhaps have an understanding across the supervisory union or schools. I think we're at the point for final thoughts. And questions. So I like to end in thinking about when a presentation, as far as what you might bring back, what stands out, and what action steps you might take to further this idea of importance of collaboration, and specifically some of the things we talked about with trust and the dynamics of bringing this to a place of conversation within your staff.
I just had I was just thinking a lot about the scheduled time for collaboration that MJ talked about, and I feel like so I'm an MTSS coach at Hazen Union School, and I think that my administrator really tries to give a lot of autonomy to teachers, and doesn't want to micromanage. And so like while there might be like this meeting time, like there's no expectation of notes even. and so I tried to enforce that a little bit this year through him. But like teams don't meet, there's like no accountability, which is super frustrating for me, whose role is to try to strengthen systems. And yeah, so I feel like that's so tricky, right? Like that balance of trying to give teachers autonomy and being like, okay, you're professionals, like you know what you need to talk about, right? But like they don't actually. And I wonder if you have any comments about that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. A lot of thoughts there. As we are of service to the field, the VTmtss team, so we're happy to talk more at depth of what might work for your particular school context. I think the expectations, the notes, the accountability, all of that is really critical to making sure that that time it kind of feeds into people feeling like that meeting time is purposeful, and then kind of feeds into them wanting to go to the meeting. So I think being really clear with expectations, having a level of structure, if there's a bit of autonomy that folks have, how do you co-create what that structure looks like so that there's a level of investment in it? And then the other part of that is there's an accountability that they attend. The other piece I would almost think about the purpose or the group itself as its own entity. Like, what is the rationale? What is the purpose of that? And how does each person collaborate or help advance the purpose of the group? And so thinking about like collective ownership and making sure that you're having the right people attend those meetings in the first place, and not just meet people, but their roles. Is the composition of the team what it needs to be, or does that need to be reconfigured in a way for it to be more supportive and more meaningful? So those are just initial thoughts. And it's really hard balancing that level of autonomy and that educators are just so stretched thin, you know. So if there's a demonstration that that meeting time is going to be purposeful and it's going to drive results, and that people who go feel like they matter and that they have autonomy within the meeting and within the group, that might increase probability of success.
Thank you.
Nancy, any thoughts there? I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, just thinking about structure and not so much structure, that, you know, that continuum of thinking about meeting.
Well, no, I think Nancy froze. Are you able to hear her, Ashley? Well, it wouldn't be a presentation without one technical snafu. So we'll reconnect when Nancy is able to collect her thoughts and forward it along. I'm sure she had a lot to share there.
Awesome. Maybe I'll draft an email and send it to both of you.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks so much for this space.
Of course.
Yeah.
And so just rounding this out, unless there are any other questions, today, Nancy and I facilitated. We were here alongside our colleague, Ashley Riendo. And we just appreciate each and every one of you for being here. We would certainly love to continue to engage and continue this conversation if we can be helpful through technical assistance or support in any way. We also would like to forecast our next VTmtss office hour, which will be April 17th from 3 to 4 p.m. That's also a Thursday. And we will be joined from our colleagues from special education and early education to really talk about the interconnectedness and the overlay with special ed, early ed, and VTmtss. So we'll have a panel discussion and have some opportunity for rich discussion of where our work is distinct, but also where it overlaps, and looking forward to that discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and participating with us, and thank you for what you're doing for our Vermont students. Please let us know if we can support in any way, and until next time, thank you so much.